and gave him 2 phone numbers and the name of an individual who was his source. I immediately had our former CIA officer run him. The first number came back to an airline, Lion Air, the largest airline of Indonesia, not a big wine collector. And the second number came back to a strip mall, Jalan Galamaja. I said, whoa, 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 whoa. We knocked on every door. None of the people in the locations had ever heard of Rudy Kurniawan or his father. Everything with this fellow just kept coming up fake.
Au courant de la fraude qu'il y a eu à propos de ces vignes ici?
Non. La vie est belle?
Quand on fait des fausses bouteilles, que de la roche et qu'il les a vendues pour $20,000.
When I came back to Europe for this dinner, it was time to focus on my harvest, and you know, I'm a winemaker. Okay, I don't look like a winemaker, but I am. I started to investigate again at the end of the harvest. Then I decided to go to Asia, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Taipei. I wanted to know who is Pak Hendra.
他去包的去像有一点像那个春卷，然后最上面还会点缀一颗就是新鲜的那个raspberry。
会另外服务的，用寿司盅，然后要用一样用匙将寿司淋在肉与盘的正中间，让它慢慢的晕开来，让它慢慢晕开，不要。
I go very often to Asia, and I know very well Asian people. And I have to tell you that the wealthy people from Jakarta are coming to Singapore and Taipei to have fun. So I knew a lot of these people from Jakarta. And I would ask, do you know of Mr. Pak Hendra? Finally, I found out that Pak means Mr. and Hendra is like Smith. So this is the most used name in Indonesia. So I would ask, do you know a very rich family importing beer that would have a son in California that would love wine? Nobody knew about a family like that. So, who is Rudy?
唔係佢有問題，佢買好貴，但係佢好傻傻地成日就 lost 就咁樣賣。我中意佢啦，愛佢。
He didn't talk so much about his wealth, but he didn't have to because it was obvious.
我點解今晚大啲樽？第一我有好多，第二我想再試下。
I met his mother, was a wonderful lady, and I met his brother.
And your brother, you know, he's in the last 2 months, he's been here 10 times.
He doesn't want to go back.
He was very businesslike, very nice, but Rudy was very outgoing and just the opposite.
I got to cut down a little bit on drinking and eating like this every week.
I spent 3 Christmas Eves with he and his mother. She was very old. She did not speak English, and he was clearly taking care of her.
We always exchange.
We always exchange.
Risotto, he always gives me my.
Dar seemed very much like the big brother who was running the business back in Asia and giving Rudy an allowance.
From my point of view, he looked up to his brother, and his brother could say, hey, if you screw up, then I can cut you off. That's the perception I got.
Dar didn't strike me as a criminal.
That's why you mentioned it.
What's your favorite Al Pacino movie?
Scarface.
My name is James Wynn. I was an FBI agent for 30 years, 26 of which were spent investigating cases involving the theft of art or art fraud. Well, I've read the Idiot's book on French wine. That's how I started. My background is financial, and this, in a lot of ways, is a financial crimes investigation. One person described Rudy as having a never-ending reservoir of needs. He ran like $16 million through his American Express account. Rudy had a number of very nice cars, an Italian sports car, a Mercedes SUV. He had purchased a mansion in Bel Air, California. He was buying contemporary art. He had Damien Hirst, he had some Warhol. All of these trappings go into creating Rudy. He was like the Gen X Great Gatsby.
You put me in big trouble, man. I'm on diet.
The persona established by Rudy was that he was a trust fund baby, very wealthy, sent to the U.S. to care for his mother, was earning an allowance from his brother who was running the family companies. I was unable to establish any of that as being true. Based on my review of years of bank records, I see no evidence whatsoever that he was receiving trust fund proceeds from his brother.
I always said that. We always said that. The right wine, the right food. Let's toast. Let's toast.
What emerged for me was how desperate Rudy was for money. He's putting people off, putting people off. He has a deadline. He's supposed to pay someone. And he's procrastinating because he doesn't have the money. It's almost like a shell game. You know, he's borrowing money from here to pay over there. All the activity involves wine transactions and/or loans and advances he was receiving from clients of one of the auction companies.
Do you see wine as a good investment?
It's a great investment. I mean, historically, it's been one of the best investments on par with gold and...
Acker, like a lot of auction companies, offer advances in anticipation of sales.
Beautiful thing about wine is that people actually drink it, so there's less bottles every day or every week of some of the world's greatest wines, so it's naturally kind of puts pressure on pricing automatically.
This was a way to beat out other auction companies that might be competing for Rudy's business. At one point, you know, Rudy was obligated to Acker for almost $10 million.
So raise your hand, sir, please. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do? Or...
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Can you please state your name for the record?
Rudy Cornelian.
Let me cover some ground rules just so that you know. Sure. Have you been deposed before?
No.
So it's important that you speak audibly.
Oh, okay. Sorry
because the court reporter is trying to write down what you're saying, so he can't write down nods of the head. He needs words. Okay. You understand that?
Yes.
Mr. Kerniawan, who inspected these bottles?
Well, we basically have, we basically drank a lot of these bottles with a lot of different people, including critics, experts, auction houses, and whatnot.
We tried to press Rudy for the source of his wine. We were looking to build our case and file against him.
That John doesn't want to take it. It could be fake. It could be counterfeit. But he's not sure. I'm not sure. I don't believe so. So I agreed to take them back, which is the right thing to do.
He wasn't defensive. He was guarded, but, you know, friendly. He's a hail fellow, well-met kind of fellow.
Do you speak French?
No.
And do you write French?
No. Just merci.
Never definitive, nothing concrete. You know what? That guy told me nothing.
He owes everybody money, and John Capon is no longer, at least publicly, selling his wine. And that's when I started to see lists fly across the country from different brokers and whatnot because Rudy was trying to find other ways to sell, and he did.
This is another fake one. After the Ponsell auction in 2008, nobody wanted to deal with Rudy's wines. Everybody knew there was a problem. But in 2009, Christie's, of all people, sold wine for Rudy in a series of auctions for him under his own name. The auction houses had gone from having high reputations to having apparently sold tens of millions of dollars worth of counterfeit wines. In 2012, on top of all this, I got a hold of the Spectrum Vanquish catalog. They had brand new labels. They had the pink wax. And we all looked at it and all said, yeah, absolutely, this is Rudy's wine. Spectrum wouldn't withdraw them, and they wouldn't disclose it was from Rudy. At that point, I went and published a warning. Boy, did this go viral.
There were a number of different labeling issues that were basically called to our attention. One of them involved a strip label for an importer, Percy Fox, that had a misspelling of his address, Sackville Street, with 2 E's, and it should have been with an L and an E.
FBI agents came here and were talking pretty seriously. I could tell by their line of questioning that they were zeroing in on him. They were serious about it. I said, you're barking up the wrong tree. Rudy could never do what you think he has done because he just doesn't have the capacity to do it. And after they left, I went to the phone and I called him. As a friend, I thought I should warn him. I remember his very words. I said, the FBI was just here, Rudy, and I think they're really seriously. I can tell. The last time they came, they were just asking. This time, there's something serious going on, and I just want to let you know. And he said, don't worry, dude, I have everything under control. Those were his very words. Don't worry, dude, I have everything under control.
I don't think there was any reason to think he knew we were coming. We meet on the morning of the 8th, somewhere around 5 o'clock. The plan was to approach the house, set up a perimeter, knock and announce, and place him under arrest. We pulled up, and agents went to their designated positions, and they proceeded to knock and announce, and knock and announce, and knock and announce, and yell and yell, and there was no answer. The team leader said, get the ram, and I thought, oh no, this is going to be a long day. And then the door opened, and it was Rudy, and he looked like he had just gotten out of bed. When you walked in the house, the first thing you saw was wine everywhere in the living room and a huge wine refrigerator. I was stunned. I mean, I could have been knocked over with a feather when I saw what was in the kitchen. In the kitchen sink, there were 2 or 3 bottles soaking. The labels were being soaked off the bottles. There were 2 or 3 bottles sitting next to the kitchen sink, waiting to be labeled. There was a cork extraction device. There was a recorking device. There was, in effect, a mixing station of somewhere around 20 bottles sitting in the kitchen, all sorts of California wines. And there were notations. Change the year, the vintage, change the size, remove a serial number. We found bottles that were unlabeled that had handwritten notations like formulas. There were labels and labels and labels, thousands of labels, banded like US currency. The thermostat was set at like 63 degrees. And in this $1 million house, they used space heaters in the 2 bedrooms where they slept. In a storeroom, there were racks and racks of wine. And on the treadmill, there were 18 waiting to be labeled. There was a stencil. There were old wooden crates throughout the house. There were boxes with real labels, like a library. There was everything you'd ever need to make fake wine. As an FBI agent, if I had listed the 10 things that I would have liked to have obtained from a search, this was 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 to infinity.
I don't know what all that stuff was doing there. It's very odd, right? I can't picture, they didn't find printing presses, they just found stuff. They found no stuff to make wax caps, no means of production, just stuff. So what's that stuff doing there? Is he looking at it? Is he giving it to someone? Is someone giving it to him to look at? I don't know.
I could not believe. I couldn't believe it. That can't be Rudy. Being a very close friend of his, I got calls. And then I saw the pictures.
He is the last person I would ever suspect of being able to do any kind of intensive arts and crafts.
I left you a message, just so you know. No, I didn't get it. The number that I have for you, I called.
Still there, but I
was a machine
just
on
changed
it.
a new phone, you see?
He is ADD. He doesn't have the attention span.
Life is good, life is good. Life is good, man.
It's a time-consuming, laborious thing to do, and he could never do that. I just could not see him doing it, and I still don't see him doing it, and I still don't believe he did it. No way.